So what is schizophrenia? Well, according to the definition, schizophrenia is a mental disorder characterised by abnormal social behaviour and failure to understand what is real. Common symptoms include false beliefs, unclear or confused thinking, hearing voices, and reduced social engagement and emotional expression, as well as a lack of motivation.
Man, you gotta give me something.
People with schizophrenia often have additional mental health problems, such as anxiety disorders, major depressive illness, or substance abuse disorder. Symptoms typically come on gradually. A common misconception is that schizophrenia refers to split personalities, or people having multiple personalities. In actuality, this particular view is incorrect. Multiple personality disorder is a different condition altogether. People with schizophrenia do not have split personalities, they have delusions and hallucinations. But it is not in fact the same as having separate individual personalities. Schizophrenia divides one from reality. It does not divide your mind into different personalities. It also is not a rare condition. In fact, 1 out of 100 people are said to suffer from this particular disorder. It's also a bit of a myth that people with schizophrenia are dangers to themselves and others. Although sometimes delusions and hallucinations can lead towards violent behaviour, this is not the majority case. Most people with schizophrenia are neither violent nor a danger to others. In fact, there are a great many treatments, a great many therapies to help people to deal with schizophrenia, as well as certain antipsychotic medications when and where required.
You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
An important part of treatment can be to try and actually bring people out of isolation, try and get them to integrate with a community, and so in that way their delusions, their paranoia can subside because they have more healthy pattern seeking rather than the incredibly paranoid versions of pattern seeking which may turn into incredibly vivid delusions and hallucination. There are 7 common warning signs. The first is depression, including social withdrawal. The second is hostility, suspiciousness, extreme reaction to criticism. The third is deterioration of personal hygiene. The fourth is flat, expressionless gaze. The fifth trait is the inability to cry or express joy or an inappropriate laughter or cry. 6. Oversleeping or insomnia, forgetful, unable to concentrate. 7. Odd or irrational statements, strange usage of words, or an unusual way of speaking. You may find people suffering from schizophrenia have certain characteristics which overlap with other conditions, other disorders, since the delusions they may well have might well be things that make them feel superior or think in a certain way, have an idea of grandeur, have the idea of being persecuted. 90% of people who suffer from schizophrenia have extremely common delusions.
What the hell I want to go off and go to work for? Work for what? Money? I got all the money in the world. I'm the king, man. I run the underworld, guy.
Delusions of persecution are quite common. The idea that they are out to get you. Whether or not they have the idea of which particular type of they or not isn't really the issue. The delusion is someone or something is out to get them. An interesting delusion is the delusion of reference, in which an environmental event, something quite neutral, quite mundane, is taken as being somehow important. Something is believed to have special significance. You were there on a certain day. You spoke to a particular person. Some such event. And it's seen as being somehow incredibly important. There are also delusions of grandeur, where people believe that they're Napoleon, or the new Buddha, or whatever the case may be. They think they're famous, they think they're important. In extreme cases, it's deities. In not so extreme cases, it's a person who thinks they're famous and somehow influencing the world. And interestingly, in some cases, it can even manifest as the idea that they believe they can fly, or they believe they can use certain magical powers. These are delusions of grandeur. Some people also have the idea that they're being controlled. This is known as the delusion of control. They believe they're being controlled by the government, by signals being sent from alien spacecraft, demons, God, you name it. The delusion of control is the belief that external forces are controlling you and your life, and the belief that you no longer have any sense of true free will.
Most people are powerfully, their intuitions are powerfully shaped by the illusion, the sense that they have the freedom to consciously author their thoughts and actions.
These sorts of delusions are relatively common and come in many different forms. In essence, what we're talking about is extremely bad pattern seeking. You seek out patterns, and because you're seeking out so many patterns in such a broad way, you find patterns that aren't truly there. And you believe it because it seems to be so convincing, so vivid. It's a kind of hypersensitivity where people are creating patterns en masse, and they don't have to be real, they just have to be convinced there's some kind of pattern there. It's quite common for everyday folks who aren't diagnosed as being schizophrenic to do the same thing. However, schizophrenics, they go far further than the average person. Common signs in speech when it comes to people who suffer from schizophrenia include loose association, rapidly shifting from topic to topic, with no connection between one thought and the next.
He just kept talking in one long, incredibly unbroken sentence, moving from topic to topic so that no one had a chance to interrupt. It was really quite hypnotic.
We all do this to a certain degree, but with schizophrenics, it's far more pronounced. There's also neologisms, made-up words or phrases that only have meaning to the patient themselves. A lot of statements, stories, ideas are repeated over and over. In that way, there is a slight similarity to certain types of dementia. There's also something called clang, the meaningless use of rhyming words. And there's an example in this particular piece. I said the bread, and read the shed, and fed Ned at the head. It's nonsense, meaningless rhymes. And so rhyming can be a factor where people decide to rhyme in that sort of way for no reason. So once you add it up, you have a kind of bizarre pattern to speech when it comes down to people who are schizophrenic. There are some so-called negative traits which you can notice with very little difficulty. A lack of emotional expression is one. A lack of interest or enthusiasm. Lacking interest in the world. Speech difficulties or abnormalities, as previously mentioned. Interestingly, there are various different conditions which are sometimes associated with schizophrenia because of the similar characteristics. People often confuse the traits because they don't know better. They think a person might well be schizophrenic, but they could actually have any number of other psychiatric disorders. There could be an issue of substance abuse, various medical conditions, mood disorders, and post-traumatic stress disorder. So when it comes down to diagnosis, the amateur diagnosis simply will not do. There could be a variety of factors which you're unaware of, and if you wish to diagnose a person as being schizophrenic, I wouldn't advise you go the amateur route.